You start.
We're just jumping right into this, huh?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
I want to take a nap.
Oh, Jason's on the clock.
Yeah. The sooner we can get this done, the sooner I can go back to my nap.
Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason. This is episode 55. We're going to break one of our fundamental rules here of P&A this week. Because I went to Chris, I don't know, a couple days ago, and I said, you know what? I don't care that we're not allowed to do any news-related stuff. I want to talk about the Steam Deck.
Yes, and I said, okay, that sounds good, because I also want to talk about the Steam Deck.
Yeah, so we don't normally try to talk about the news or anything that's super current or whatever, and we're already not current, which, fine, all right. So we're not breaking our rules. But we really want to talk about the Steam Deck that got announced by Valve a couple days ago. If you haven't heard, welcome back to society. The Steam Deck is another portable gaming device. Now, I say another because, there are lots of others, and maybe we'll have some time to talk about it today, but this one, in my mind, is special.
I mean, what makes it particularly special? If I look at this thing, it just looks like kind of an oversized Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yes, you're right. It does look like an oversized Nintendo Switch, but the thing that makes it special to me is that it's Steam, it's Valve, it's very clearly not trying to pull, the thing I like the most about it is they made it perfectly clear that this was a full PC in portable form. And that was their way of saying to the PC world, this is not a console. Please don't call this a they really didn't want you to call it a console because they want you, if you play on the Steam Deck, they want it to be considered PC gaming, which I know was a marketing tactic, and I knew it was supposed to appeal to me as a PC gamer, but it worked. I feel that way. I feel like if I were to play on this device, I'm still in a way PC gaming.
Oh, I think you absolutely are PC gaming. I've read some articles and some interviews and things that they did with Valve. And basically every single time that someone has asked Valve, what does this thing do? And can I run X on it? They've basically said it's a full Linux PC. And that's basically the statement that they give. They don't say yes or no. They just say it's a full Linux PC. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, they were very good about both answering and avoiding the question of, can I play the Epic Game Store on this device? And they were just it's a full PC. You can do whatever you want. Now, the one thing, before we get into detail, in a second, I want to get into details, but yes, you can play the Epic Game Store on it, but they did say you can install Windows on it. So I did want to kind of start by the fact that this is a Linux, it comes by default with a Linux operating system installed. It's a Steam Valve, kind of specialized version of Linux that's built to essentially just be a Steam platform. But they did say that you can just straight up install Windows on it, which would allow you to do anything you wanted to do that you could do on any PC. But I was wondering, does Epic Game Store or the other ones, do they have Linux? Can you run the Epic Game Store and run those games on a Linux machine?
I don't think you can run the Epic Game Store on Linux. Steam obviously runs on Linux, and it has for a long time. But Epic really has been a very Windows-centric platform, because I don't even think there's an Epic launcher for Mac.
That's what I thought. And I'm glad you brought up the other point about Steam being on Linux for a long time. I think this has been, obviously it's a piece of hardware. It's been in plans for a long time. But the fact that about, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe, Steam really committed to Linux. They said, hey, our launchers runs on Linux. We're going to be supporting games on Linux. We really want to push this idea of gaming on Linux. At the time I was okay, that makes sense. But now it the plan that was there 5 years ago or however long ago that was is really starting to come to light, because this thing at the price points that it's at would not be possible as a Windows machine.
Sure it would. You just have to add an extra $100 Windows license to it.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So you mentioned price. Let's maybe dive into what the pricing is for this thing. So as a contrast point, the Nintendo Switch is $350 and the new Switch OLED version is $400, I believe, $399. So the Steam Deck starts at $399 for 64 gigabytes of storage, of eMMC storage to be specific, which is kind of weird because eMMC is kind of like an SD card, basically. And then if you go up to a 256 gig internal storage, you go into an NVMe solid state drive, which is actually like a PCIe Gen 3 connection, which is what you probably would put in like a real gaming PC. And that runs $529. And then if you want to go top of the line, it's 512 gig of storage, again, the fast storage, for $649. So $650 for the top end Steam Deck. All of these have 16 gig of RAM. And they all have, I think, an 8-core GPU and a 4-core 8-thread CPU.
The other thing about the top tier 649 model is that it has this premium anti-glare etched glass. Now, no one really knows what that means, and no one has really been able to do any comparisons. But it is a difference between the other ones. And quite honestly, I don't have any idea what it is, but that's what draws me to the top level.
Yeah, as someone who actually took their Nintendo Switch and put a tempered glass screen protector on it, I appreciate a glass screen. And I even more appreciate a non-shiny, non-reflective glass screen. So hopefully that premium etched glass, whatever, is durable and scratch resistant and not reflective.
If I haven't given it away already, I reserved the top level Steam Deck. I tried to do it right away as soon as it came out, and I ran into some problems and actually ended up getting it a few hours later. But I you know what I said? If I'm going to spend $400, I'm going to spend $650.
Yeah, I actually went the same way. I usually don't go quite that high end, but I said I want the faster storage, I want the better screen. It comes with a case, although I think they all come with a case. And all of these things. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I will go for the big one. Now, the thing to note here is that all we have done is put in a pre-order, which cost $5. And that doesn't actually obligate you to buy the actual thing when your time comes. So we haven't actually bought these things yet. We've just expressed some level of interest to Valve for the privilege.
I liked how they did it. I liked that it wasn't free. I thought I appreciated the reservation mechanism. Because $5 to me was just yeah, okay, that seems fair to make a commitment, but also not be too expensive. And I liked that they were very clear about, you make a reservation, your full amount will be due. If you don't buy it within 30 days, once you're able to, you lose your reservation. They did it. I thought for how the market is right now with hardware, right, with graphics cards and everything else that's so hard to come by, I feel that they did the best they could with this reservation system. Now, I was a little disappointed in their inability to handle the traffic on the first couple of hours, but I think the rules of the system itself were very nice.
Yeah, and one of the key rules there was that you had to use your Steam account in order to make this reservation, in order to put in your pre-order, and you had to spend your $5, to put in, and it's fully refundable, the $5. But you also had to have your account have purchased something on Steam prior to June of 2021. So they basically made it so that you had to have actually used the Steam account to buy something, as opposed to people could just make Steam accounts for free as long as you have, a fresh email address. And so that was as an effort to prevent scalpers, was to say, hey, for at least the first 2 days, that was the other thing, is they blocked this for the first 2 days. So they said for the first 2 days, you're not allowed to buy this thing if your account is brand new, or if you've never bought anything on Steam. And that was an effort to combat scalpers. And I would say, anecdotally, it worked. because I was able to get a reservation. You were able to get a reservation, even though you weren't right on top of it because the servers were crashing. So I'd say mission accomplished on that one. I kind of wish that Sony would have done the same thing with the PS5.
Yeah, it just, well, okay, so the thing about the Steam Deck is that they are the manufacturer and the distributor in this case. They're not like giving any to Best Buy. So they had a little bit more direct control over, say, than the PS5. But that's not to say that Sony couldn't have done that.
Yeah, but Sony does their own lotteries. I mean, like, you can buy direct from Sony for PlayStation. Like, you can do that. It's just that a lot of their stuff goes through, Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, whatever typical sales channels. But I mean, if Sony wanted to, they could have said, okay, well, we're going to give all the traditional retailers low stock or whatever, and we're going to hoard a bunch of it for ourselves and do a pre-order voucher system or whatever and do it that way. Instead, what Sony does now is if you wanted to try to get a PS5 from Sony directly, is you basically have to go onto their website on the day that they're doing a drop, and then you get into a queue of some sort, some kind of waiting room, and then there's a big countdown clock, and when the countdown clock hits 0, they basically just shuffle everybody around. No matter what time you got in line, no matter what time you join the waiting room, you get a random number, and it basically tells you your position in line is this. And your likelihood of actually getting to the front of the line today before we run out of PS5s is basically none. That's what it said every time I've tried to look.
Oh, well, at least it's honest.
But at least they tell you right away at the beginning. They're like, okay, well, we had, 1 million people try to get in line, and we had 100 PS5s to sell. And then when we randomly pick people, we 1 through 100 are relatively sure that we're going to, get them a chance. And then maybe 100 to 200, if all of the 1 through 100 people were asleep and didn't actually go through the checkout process, then you go into this backup people. But, I think I've always ended up on a crazy long part of the line, and it's never come up. And granted, I mean, I have a PS5. I was really in it to try to get one for a friend. So that's how Sony does it. And that makes it fair, right? It makes it so that if you can't be there, 13 hours early or whatever when they open the webpage, then you're not like disadvantaged, but also it's a little frustrating still because it's so random.
The other thing that this reservation system allows them to do, which I very much appreciate, is even though I wasn't right on time, I couldn't get like a December 2021 unit or a reservation for that. It because it knows my place in line, because it knows everyone's place in line, I have an expected availability of Q2 2022. Like, it can tell me now, like 6 months to 12 months out, hey, we expect that you should be able to buy it around this time. And while that may not make me happy, it's good to set that expectation, and that's like really nice.
It's so much better than not knowing, because really at this point on like a PS5, it's just a complete guess game, right? You have no idea what or when you might even have a chance. And that's always been my thing with these, is just let me, get in some kind of line, even if that line is a year long, and then at least I can stop worrying about it. So I got Q1 2022, and I was in the first half hour of pre-orders, I think.
Yeah, I think you did it right. The secret sauce for you was to use a gift card.
Yeah, I had Steam credit or Steam Wallet credit on my account, and I didn't have to deal with messing with payment methods and stuff. But I lucked into, I didn't think I was going to be able to get it into my cart because it kept crashing every time I clicked like add my pre-order. And then I happened to go back to the main Steam page, and it had like an ad, and it said in cart. And I was like, wait, it says in cart. So then I went to my cart on Steam, and sure enough, there is a, Steam Deck reservation. And I was like, great, check out. And then it was like, yeah, Steam Wallet. And I was like, perfect. And then I clicked go, and then it was done.
Yeah, I had trouble with, I was trying to pay via PayPal and or credit card, whichever would go through. And essentially none of them were going through. I went back a couple hours later, like 2 hours later, and it finally went through. So I kind of gave up after 20 minutes and said, I'll come back later. So I got a little later of a reservation. I'm not too disappointed by it, but fine. What I've seen from news and whatnot is that almost everyone went with the top tier model. So if you and I were to switch to the lowest tier model, we'd probably get ours much earlier. But I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, part of me says if you're going to bother, go for the big one. Otherwise, just wait for the second version. Because I was definitely also tempted to say, hey, this thing is version 1 of this hardware. This is, version 1 of kind of putting this AMD CPU in here with integrated graphics. Like, the next one will obviously be better. It's like anything with computers, right? If you wait, you'll get a better price performance. But this being Valve and this being something relating to Steam, I think there's a reasonable chance that this might be the only one of these they ever make.
That's fair.
Because given the Steam Link and Steam controller history, I am not confident that Valve will commit to this for a very long time. Now, the fact that it is a full-on computer means that even if Valve were to drop support for it, which I don't think they actually would, then the community could pick it up and say, hey, this is just a Linux computer and you can do whatever you want with it. And heck, I could even put Windows on it if I wanted to. So all of those things kind of future-proof it for me and kind of give me a little bit of a confidence boost that this thing will be supported and useful, even if, Valve drops it in a year or two. But definitely not thinking that there's necessarily going to be a second one of these, unless it sells well.
I'm glad you brought up the other Steam or Valve hardware things that they've done in the past, because I think, again, I don't think that we really ever get a good glimpse of what goes on inside of Valve, but this just kind of, for me, goes to show that nothing is an accident, and they are very good about trialing things and seeing how they work. And I don't think they've dropped support for the controller and the Steam Link, but they kind of, those were definitely, like, to me now looking back, definitely like test pieces of hardware, where they were trying things like, how can you stream from your computer within your house? Can we run a Steam thing on Linux, which I think is what the Steam Link ultimately ran. How do the touch controls work with the controller? How do people like only having one joystick? Like, I think a lot of those things were tests for this. This kind of, in my mind, so far, being the ultimate goal. This is definitely the most expensive piece of hardware that has been, solely Steam. They did have the Vive with HTC, and they have the Index now, but like, those are both like kind of peripherals, where this is actually like a PC, right? So, I think it's all kind of been leading to this in some way, and I'm excited from what they've learned. I think they made the right choice by including 2 joysticks, but also they were like, hey, this idea of a touchpad, of a trackpad, Sony did it, and we kind of, it worked in some ways on the Steam controller. So they included it in a way, I think, on the Steam Link that was very smart. It like makes sense, and I'm not afraid of it. Like, I'm not bummed by the way they did it, even though I really didn't like it on the controller.
Oh, I really liked it on the controller. I used the trackpad on the controller quite a bit in order to like move the mouse, because the Steam controller was unique because it was designed to play a whole bunch of PC games that were not designed to be played with a controller. And I actually think that the trackpad as a thumb trackpad on the Steam controller was a very good way to control mouse style gestures using a controller. Much faster, much more accurate than trying to move a cursor with a thumbstick.
I agree, but I think it very much limited the games that were meant to be played with a controller.
Yes.
Like Rocket League. Like, I really didn't like playing Rocket League with it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is the way they've done it here seems like an excellent compromise or combination of both of the ideas, including both on both hands, the joystick being above this other trackpad, them, kind of both being at your fingertips, being able to switch between them, the trackpad still being, or the touchpad, whatever, I don't know what they're calling it, but the touchpad being available, working exactly the same, but also now you have 2 independent trackpads, so they can do some more fancy stuff with it by allowing you to control, both thumbs controlling 2 different trackpads at the same time. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this iteration of this control scheme.
Yeah, I was just imagining as you were talking there, using both trackpads. I'm sure that they'll probably be identical. Like, it'll just be whether you prefer to do it with your left or right hand. But it would be pretty interesting to have a game that was specifically designed for this input scheme, where you had left and right joysticks to do your kind of move and look like you would in a normal, like a first or third person shooter or something. Then you could have a D-pad for quick items like you would. And then you could have two different menus maybe on either side of the screen that were just always there with independent cursors that you can control from the left or right trackpads, and then go from there. And I don't know why you would need to do that, but you could. And that would be kind of a unique control scheme. However, I'm sure that this thing is probably not going to get a lot of games designed only for the Steam Deck, right? It's really more that they're trying to build in flexibility so that any kind of game that you have, they can support that with the input methods that they've got.
The other strong decision I think they made was the triggers on the back, or the paddles, or however you want to call them, kind of for your ring and middle finger around the back of the controllers. It's becoming a more common thing to do on higher end, controllers and peripherals. But I don't tend to use them very often, but I know that they're very important to some people. And I think with all of the buttons that you're losing, maybe from a typing scenario, you may need them, right? You can think of situations where you maybe don't need the full keyboard and mouse, but you'd be really limited with just a D-pad and 4 buttons. And some macro keys on the back or some paddles on the back could really fill that void. And then for the people that really use it for things like Rocket League, they're available. You're not limited kind of in that way. So I thought that was a really good decision as well.
Yeah, once upon a time when I first started playing Rocket League, I played it with a Steam controller, which has paddles on the back, had 2 paddles on the back. And I would use, I forget whether it was left or right paddle, to do my power slide. And actually, I think that was a kind of cool way to kind of just like squeeze the controller in order to do the slide. I also had it bound to the X button so that I could, work it normally. But having kind of those dual inputs and being able to kind of choose like, oh no, I'm squeezing this thing in order to, do the power slide. Or I think I had the other side set to boost too. So then it was kind of like you could manipulate those independently with fingers that weren't otherwise occupied doing sticks. So that was kind of a cool input method. So maybe we'll give that a shot. I actually was just thinking, I wonder if you could, I'm sure you can since it's just a PC, use the Steam Deck as a very, very, very expensive controller for the computer.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Like, could I just get a USB-C cable and plug this thing into my computer and use it as a really expensive controller?
That'd be cool. That'd be interesting. I mean, I know it has Bluetooth. It's obviously got a USB-C port. I don't know that it would output the controls, though.
Well, I think you could do it. You could run some software on the Steam Deck. And then, well, I mean, if Valve is smart, right? They'll just build it straight into Steam. Like, they have that controller interface that they have like for remapping buttons and stuff. But if they don't, I'm sure someone will write one that will allow it to kind of fake out as like an Xbox controller to the PC. So we've talked about how the hardware is really cool and how it looks like it's going to be pretty functional for playing games and stuff. But are you actually looking forward to playing games on this thing?
Yeah, and I don't know. Yes, maybe. I think so. I think this will be a different experience for me than the Switch. I don't know why, and I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know why I would prefer to play Hades on this thing rather than on my Switch. But yes, I do have some concerns, like some things that are keeping me weary, I guess, maybe waiting for reviews. The battery life is no better than the Switch, which I have a feeling that, well, I mean, this is just a straight USB-C. You could probably get external batteries for this, no problem.
Yes, and as someone who's done that with a Switch on an airplane, it's no big deal.
So yeah, I am looking forward to, yes, I'm looking forward to getting this, trying this, using this. I have a feeling that this is something that I would use on travel more. The one thing I really, really liked about what they demoed was they were just like, yeah, just bring this and a monitor and a mouse and a keyboard, and you have a portable gaming PC. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. Like you can just plug it in. Like you can just plug any peripheral into this thing, and you've got a full PC ready to go. I mean, the other option is just to throw a keyboard and mouse and use the tiny little screen, but there's like nothing limiting you there. And I think that's kind of the draw for it. It's much, much more versatile than a Switch.
The thing that will limit this, I think, if you go into the monitor case, is that it only has a certain amount of processing power and it can only run games at a certain level. And so it probably will look pretty good on the 720p screen that it has. But then when you go hook it up to a real, say 24 or 27 inch 1080p monitor, it will look not as good, right? It will look blurry. It will look weird. I mean, yes, you'll then remember that you're working on something that you brought in your backpack, not in something that is a full on gaming PC. But I'm prepared for that to not look great if I hook it up to an actual TV.
Well, it can output anything you want it to. Like if you want to run it in 4K, go ahead. But you're probably going to get about 7 frames a second, because they did say that the any image or graphics or display options that you would normally have in a PC game, you would have in this. Now, there will be defaults, and the screen on the device itself is 720p, and it would default to 720p, which they think would be best for performance and, keeping it above 30 frames per second, hopefully targeting closer to 60. But they did mention that if you plug it into a monitor, you could up the there's nothing, again, it's a full PC. There's nothing limiting you from changing the specs of the game. It's just that there were defaults and best case scenarios for what it was. And I agree. I think, if I were to play it on a monitor, I would maybe try it at 1080. And like for things like, they showed a lot of Factorio in their trailers, and in their like demos and whatnot. I think you could probably run Factorio at 1080 on this thing. I don't think it would be I mean, I hope it wouldn't be a problem, but you would never run something like Destiny at 1080 off of this thing.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I'm most looking forward to, is being able to go on an airplane and play Factorio. I've done it before on a laptop and it works, but being able to do it on this little self-contained thing with a little screen, I think will be even better, because laptops are kind of cramped on the little tray tables on an airplane. But like, I've played the Switch for an entire cross-country flight and it's fine. So assuming the battery holds up, then I am really looking forward to some Factorio on the go.
The other thing that's a big selling point for me, we talked about Switch, and if I'm excited to play this, I don't have to rebuy anything. Obviously they're using this as a marketing tactic to make you more reliant on your Steam library, even though it's a full PC and you can do anything you want with it. What comes to by default is the Steam library, and right on the main landing page is your Steam library anywhere. And I'm just like, okay, all right. Yeah, I kind of see that. Like, I already own all these games. I don't have to rebuy them. I don't have to buy them on another console. I don't have to worry about any of the, things that I would have to consider if I was, buying a PS5 or a Switch, or, do I have multiple games? Does it have cross save? Does it, do I really have to purchase this again? So that is I wouldn't say excited is the right word. I would say that's a really nice convenience for me, who I like having just one library of games. I think I mentioned this maybe on the Epic Game Store episode. I really only check my Steam library first, and it's where I like to stay.
Yeah, I think this will actually have a pretty, chilling effect is probably a little overdramatic, but a chilling effect on my use of the Switch, because as I've talked in the past, I tend to get a lot of indie games on the Switch, even though they're usually cheaper on PC. And in this case, if I can get the same experience of being able to take something on the road and having it be, portable like that, then I will probably pick the PC route rather than the Switch route because the games are cheaper. I mean, that's really just what it comes down to. If things want to go cheaper on the Switch, then I'll go that way. But I think this will probably move the Switch into more of a Nintendo exclusives kind of a piece of hardware for me, and where I'll play Zelda and I'll play Mario and I'll play, all those kinds of things. And then I will just go back to the Steam Deck, hopefully, for any of the kind of indie 2D kinds of games that I would currently play on the Switch on the go.
Is this going to hurt the mobile gaming? I say it out loud, and I really don't think that's true. I don't think it's going to hurt. I ask you, but I'm going to answer my own question. I don't think this is going to touch the mobile gaming market at all because they target different people.
Yeah, no, this is not going to impact or affect the phone, like mobile gaming market. I think the biggest market share will be indie games on the Switch. I think that's the thing it will take away from, if people even buy it. I mean, that's the other thing, right? Is people have to get this thing and actually want it and use it. And it doesn't have, Nintendo as a draw to it like the Switch does. There's no set of games you can only play on this thing.
Is this going to hurt, or do you think this competes with, say, like xCloud gaming from Microsoft? The play your Xbox on any. I mean, it's almost a direct competitor like GeForce Now, where you're like you can play your PC games anywhere on your phone or on your whatever. Like, I think it's a competitor to that, but even so, like that is a different technology, right? This is really putting the power of a PC kind of right in your hand, whereas those are utilizing the power of your PC somewhere else and streaming to the device that's in your hand. I still think they're competing a little bit.
Yeah, this is definitely a competitor to the NVIDIA Shield, I think. And I'm sure that this thing will be able to do Steam in-home streaming, the thing where you can use your gaming PC in the same house in order to stream down to, a laptop or a different device. I'm sure this thing will count as a target that you can use your, 3090 in your desktop tower to render the stuff and just stream a video over to the device. And that'll be a great use for it. I also wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft were to say, hey, we are, teaming up with Valve in this one little instance to put xCloud streaming or whatever, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate streaming onto the Steam Deck as a first-class citizen. Like we'll put a shortcut button on the main UI or something, where they would make some business deal where they would do that. I think that could happen because I don't see Microsoft interested in going into this kind of ultra portable, all-in-one, like with the screen baked into it kind of device. I think they're pretty happy on the gaming front in the big console with, streaming off to smaller things front. And then you pay them the subscription fee for the streaming part. And then they don't have to worry about the logistics of building and distributing hardware that does all this stuff. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but these kinds of hardware have to be more hardened and differently designed than just consoles and handheld controllers. So I think that there's probably a conscious decision being made on the Microsoft side to say, hey, we're not going to get into the, the Switch market, right? We're just going to go make our best games and then stream them out to whatever devices we can get our hold of.
Chris, of our friend group, the people we play with, I know you and I have reserved it. How many more people do you know have actually put the $5 that was required down?
I maybe one. It's not very many.
Really? Okay. All right.
I think maybe one, maybe two.
Any idea? Like just people aren't interested or waiting for reviews, or what do you think?
I think it probably comes from a use case thing where some of them have just recently bought like gaming laptops and they're like, okay, well, if I'm going to play games on the road, then I will just play with my gaming laptop that I just bought that probably costs like $1,000. And that makes sense, right? Don't blame them for that. I don't have a gaming laptop currently, so this is a niche that I actually can fill with a device like this. So I think that's probably part of it. Another piece of it is they don't travel that much, or they don't have a lot of use for this to be on the go because they just, hey, I have a computer, I can play on my computer. And so I'm not sure that they see the utility of it. Also, it is a little expensive. I mean, it's, $500, which is as expensive as a PS5. So if you're if you don't have a use in mind, then I'm not sure that it's something that you just do on a whim. If it was like $200, I would say that barrier to entry would be much, much lower.
Well, let us know if you've reserved a Steam Link. I'm interested to see how many listeners or how many people here have decided to go, and what level that you decided to reserve. Obviously, Chris and I got the just put $5 down. It's, we're not committing to anything. We're just kind of saying we want our place in line. Refundable $5 down on the $650 Steam Deck. And, let us know what if you've decided, and then if you haven't, like, why not? Like, what does it not fit? Is there something that's like actively preventing you from putting a reservation or being interested in it? Because I haven't heard any kind of, like, the only downside I've really heard is the battery life, but that's to be expected. I haven't heard any like real strong criticisms of it. So, overall, it seems like a very positive piece of hardware to introduce to the market. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do that by joining our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you'd prefer to go old school and send us an email, you can view our show notes, see our older episodes, and send us that email at our website, which is pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show, we would just ask that you would share it with the others that you think might enjoy it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. I picked up Returnal on the PlayStation Summer Sale for $50 this week.
Oh, you did it. This is the one where, like, you're like a scientist or something on a strange planet, and there's like something to do with time and...
Yeah, it's like a time loop. I haven't played it yet. I just picked it up like earlier today, and I've downloaded it, installed it, and I haven't started it yet. So really, this is just more of a teaser of we can talk about my thoughts on it at some point when I play it.
This was like a really hyped up like AAA game, right?
It was really interesting because it was another one of these like true PS5 exclusives. Like, it is actually PS5 exclusive, like Ratchet and Clank kind of. It also came out like 2 weeks before Ratchet and Clank. And it's a roguelike, and it is a shooter, a third-person shooter.
Oh, it's a roguelike.
Yes. It's got a time loop mechanic to it, but then there's like a roguelike element to the time loop part.
I did not realize that. I thought it was like a story-based, like almost like God of War kind of thing.
No, it's story-based as much as like Hades is story-based, where each time you go through, you might get a little bit more story.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. I'm not sure that I'm going to be any good at it, but it's, it was on sale. It was, instead of $70, I got it for a more reasonable $50. So
that's still expensive.
It is still expensive, but for PS5 games, it's kind of where they are.
Is it a big studio, or is it an indie game?
It's Housemarque, so it's like a medium game. I think they just announced that. I don't think that PlayStation bought them, but I think that they maybe they did. I don't know. Either PlayStation just bought them right after Returnal came out, or they announced some kind of partnership where Housemarque is going to be like a second party Sony studio or something.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I look forward to that.
Yeah, more to come.
Maybe I could watch you stream it on the PlayStation Anywhere, whatever that thing is called.
Ooh, yeah, I should do that. Yes, my ridiculously convoluted share play from my PlayStation to my computer and then Discord stream it to Jason over the internet.
We have the technology.